My name's Steve Froelich, president of the board for the DMFA. It's my pleasure to welcome you all here today. Thank you for being here. On behalf of the board of directors and the entire DMFA, it's awesome to see so many people here. You probably saw we had to set up 2 extra tables in the back because of today's outage as well, which is great. For your colleagues and coworkers who are back at the office, DMFA, because of our great sponsors and partners as well, we're experimenting with some new video technology as well, so we'll be videotaping parts of it. For our presenters as well, don't feel the pressure. We've got some cool edit technology as well, so if you mess up any parts of it, we'll just put those parts out. I wanted to start as well by thanking our sponsors, especially our gold and silver sponsors. They're really the ones that make the package of the year possible, and because of their sponsorship. I wanted to thank with our gold level sponsor, the folks at ALC, for their sponsorship this year. And we have 5 silver level sponsors as well, the folks at Epsilon, FMI Direct, Info Group, LW Robbins, and McVicker and Higginbotham. So thank you to them as well. Okay, so as part of our integrated marketing campaign as well, it's my job to tell you things from the podium that you're going to see in your email inbox and in your office mailboxes as well, so that you keep an eye out for them. In the next 2 or 3 weeks, you'll be seeing nomination forms going around for 2 very important awards that the DMFA does every year, our Sankey Perlwin Award and our Marketer of the Year. So please keep an eye out for those, tell your colleagues and friends, and please send in some nominations. Those awards will be announced at our December 5th holiday event here at the Yale Club. In the meantime as well, we had one of our first networking breakfast events down in DC at the Willard. We'll be doing another one on October 10th with some website interactivity tips. So please keep a lookout for that. It's a breakfast series in Washington, DC. As well, back here next month, October 24th. Been talking about a couple different topics about allocation of online gifts, being able to tie them back to direct mail and TV and other marketing efforts, and some simple tips to be able to do that. There's an amazing opportunity happening on November 8th that I wanted to make sure everyone is aware of as well. One of the things that the DMFA is very proud of is our ability to offer some low-cost educational opportunities. So like our DM 101 series, we also have a Fundamentals of Acquisition and Retention that will be held at the ASPCA's offices on November 8th. You'll find the price points under $100, so it's a great tool to use for coworkers and for people new and old veterans to the industry as well. And again, that's on November 8th, and as I mentioned, the December 5th event to make sure that's in your calendars. Finally, the early bird membership, you might have seen the sign outside. Membership in the DMFA goes from July 1st to June 30th, and you get the early bird rate locked in by September 30th, so I think you have 9 more days to do that as well. So thank you all again for being here today. We've got a really interesting program. Many of you may have been here for our Package of the Year awards in June. It's been quite a summer since then. So now we have a great chance here today to bring some of the winners back and talk about their packages. And I'm going to turn the podium over to John Briley, board member who has helped really pull the Package of the Year awards together all summer, and he's going to be our MC to introduce the speakers today as well. John, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Our first speaker today, the overall winner for the Package of the Year, first place winner in the acquisition category is Covenant House. It will be Sharon Adams, Tom Gaffney, and Lisa Wilson from Wilson Associates.
Hi everyone, how are you? It's a real pleasure to talk about this package. This actually is a package that has a very long history. Covenant House has always had, since it began in the late 60s, this real commitment to try to generate mission-type donors. We all know how hard that is. So what they had, Father Bruce was the founder. And he had this brilliant idea. He said, you know, I'm going to write letters, but I don't want to write letters about program because people don't care about program. He goes, I'm going to write letters about people. And I'm going to draw you in by talking about people. I'm going to let you listen to the dialogue. I'm going to make you feel that at the end of the letter, you know you can touch, you feel, you sense, that you can actually see a scene as it's unfolding. And he was the most brilliant copywriter I've ever read in my years in this industry. And so that's what he did. And the idea was, let's connect with people's emotions and then sell the cause later, as opposed to just beginning a letter and say, I want to tell you about my program. He did it very differently. So he tested hundreds of stories over the years. And at the end of the day, one day, we were sitting around, and this is back in the 80s, and we said, you know, we've got all these stories. Why don't we put them all together in a book? And that's how the book package was born, those many years ago. So the first books were mailed in the early 80s. And I think over time, and Sharon, I don't know if you've got a number, but I bet we've mailed 200 million, 250 million of these books. It wasn't a premium. Well, it was a premium, but it wasn't a premium because it wasn't just a trinket you could use. It actually sold the mission, and it engaged people in the mission. And we used Father Bruce's original letter, and then he had to leave. And so in 1991, this girl shows up at Covenant House. And it's kind of an apocryphal story, but it's a true story. And she shows up at Covenant House, and she's standing at the door, and she's holding a paint can. And as it turns out, the paint can contained your mother's ashes. And so that's when the paint can story was born 20 years ago. As you'll hear, it's still being used in some ways again now. And the great story is timeless. Wall Street Journal ran the same story letter for 35 years. That's the great virtue of coming up with a great story. So I'm going to read just, first, this is what the package looks like. I should mention we've tested every component probably 50 times. We've tested the outer envelope 50 times, the letter, varying lengths, the book cover, the reply slip, etc. Here was the letter itself. And just to give you a sense of why this story has been so timeless and so successful, let me just read the first 4 or 5 paragraphs. In fact, the opening up here where it's handwritten, we tested that. It used to be courier type. It says, you're going to have trouble believing this letter. I mean, what I'm about to tell you is so strange and incredible, you'll never forget it, but please understand every single word is true. I'm praying you'll take a few minutes to read it. And the story says, Dear friend, she came to our front door on a Tuesday morning, dressed in dirty rags, holding a little aluminum paint can in her arms. From the second she stepped inside our shelter, she mystified us. Whatever she did, wherever she went, the paint can never left her hands. When Kathy sat in the crisis shelter, the can sat in her arms. She took the can with her to the cafeteria that first morning she ate, and to bed with her that first morning she slept. When she stepped into the shower, the can was only a few feet away. When the tiny homeless girl dressed, the can rested alongside her feet. I'm sorry this is mine, she told our counselors whenever we asked her about it. This can belongs to me. So we've kind of engaged you into this story about what in the world is in this can. And as the story evolves, you find out it's her mother's ashes. And that's all she had. She was a homeless kid, and that's all she had. And I think that's why this story has been so successful over the years, because the punchline really is pretty amazing. So we tested this to the donors in 1991, off the charts. Typically, Covenant House back then, it's amazing. They mailed monthly letters. They'd get 14, 16% every month. So over 500,000 people with their letters. This thing went over 20. People really liked it. We said, let's test it to prospects. We packaged it in the paint can package, in the book package, tested everything. Eventually it got tired. 9 years into it, it got beaten by a premium package. Sister Mary Rose leaves in 2003. And I guess that's the end of the story, right? So we're sitting around a year or so ago, and Sister Mary Rose has this informal consultative role, with the charity. We said, why don't we just mail the letter again? A great story is timeless. There's nothing about this story that's old. It's as new as the day it was created. And she had an informal relationship with the organization. So we said, let's dress up the letter. Let's be very honest about the fact this happened 20 years ago. And let's mail it again and see what happens. And voila, the results have been fantastic. And I'm going to give the floor to Lisa now, and she can share some of those.
Hi, it's nice to see everybody. I'm Lisa Wilson, and I've had the pleasure of working with Sharon Adams and Covenant House for the last couple of years. Came in to re-engineer their acquisition program during some of those hard economic times, and I came in actually exactly where Tom left off. They started looking at the paint can letter, going back to some proven strategies in the past, and I came in and kind of rolled with that and started looking at the data and testing, and which brought us here today. So I'm going to kind of fill those gaps for the last couple of years. So as Tom said, book with paint can 1990s, pretty much the whole decade. And then you have the premiums that came along, the name stickers. From there, they went to a higher end premium with the angel pin, cross and chain, the inline keychain, and now where we are today from 2011 to the present is really a mix of acquisition packages where the book is the lead control. We didn't want to tire it out. We mail monthly at Covenant House, so we felt like there should be a changing diet based on seasonality and lists available, and so this is where we've ended up. Just to give you a sense of why those changes were made, I'm not going to go through all the numbers here, but really you can see, I mean, at the time the book was at a 0.9% response rate with a $20 average gift. But, you know, comes along the premiums and everybody's saying, whoa, you know, you get a 15% lift in response rate. The cost was not that much better, so the ROI was still stronger. So that was a great decision. From there, now you have a higher end premium that gets you to 1.4, and then obviously you're pushing 2%. So everybody's, you know, jumping up and down, you're getting in all these new donors. Part of the issue was in 2008, 2009, when the economic climate changed and the market got saturated and lists shrank, the response rates plummeted, but the costs stay high. So now all of a sudden, the math doesn't work. Because look at, in 2010, you've gone from a 53, a 57 ROI down to 37 cents. So that's where we came in and we said, okay, let's take a look at this. So one of the first things I did when I came in was look at the LTV and break-even analysis of each of these different packages. As you can see, the book broke even in about 18 months. As you go up the chart, you know, there is a relationship. It's not a direct relationship because obviously it has to do with average gift and upfront investment. But back in 2010, you're at a 37 ROI, which now is translating to a break-even of over 3 years. And in some lists, we were even questioning, are we breaking even at all? So there comes the new thresholds. We met with the board. They were very much, as a lot of organizations were, in a panic about where to invest their money. We set some thresholds because we felt at a 40-cent ROI combined with an $18 to $20 average gift that you can break even within 2 to 3 years. And those were the threshold metrics that were sent in 2011. The book played a huge part in this because the book absolutely drove a higher than 40-cent ROI and was one of the few packages that drove that high average gift between $18 and $20. So that was the rebirth of the book. There's also another mission-based appeal, which was also, I believe, a tried and true package from years before that we re-engineered a bit, and that was the Dove greeting card with the paint can letter, the same letter. And as Tom said, as much testing went on with the book, we did with the Dove greeting card, and that paint can letter, it hasn't been beaten in any packages that we've tried it in. The high-end premiums, we did keep some high-end premiums, but they had to meet the thresholds like cross and chain. And then just seasonally, one time a year, we mail a very high-end premium, which is the Christmas cards. But again, it's a very chosen list, those that generate average gift that's acceptable with the thresholds and an ROI that meets the threshold. You could see how the testing went, and again, there's a lot of data here. I'm not going through it all, but this is basically what we did. We started throwing out these broad tests to look at all the different test packages that were there, because coming out of fiscal 10, we actually didn't have a control. We knew we couldn't mail the inline package anymore, but we didn't know what we were going to mail. You're mailing 14 million pieces in acquisition, you can't just make a statement and say, this is no longer the control, we're going to do this. So as you can see, the inline keychain, great decision to move away from that. Great response rate. If you looked at this up front, you might still say the inline is the right package to go with. But looking on the back end, absolutely the wrong choice. The book, highest ROI to 62 cents. Response rate, beautiful. And then here's your average gift of about $17. Okay, so as we moved into rollout with the book, the response rate settled a bit down to about 1.1, 1.2, and the ROI settled about 50 cents, which you would expect from a test to a rollout. But the cost per package was significantly less expensive than some of those higher end packages. The average gift was up around $20, and we were off and running. Now we did say, well, we got this wonderful package. We don't want to add a lot of cost to it, but are there things we can tweak to maybe push up that response rate a little bit? So there's been some testing that's been done in the last year. We did it with a dime and penny. I'm sure everybody's aware of the nickels and dimes out there. We did it with some labels, of course, and we actually even did it with a yellow canary remit, which was one of the board members' ideas. And right now, the dime and penny is increasing the response rate by 42%, but only increasing expenses by 24%. So we're always continuing to look at the back end as well as the front end. Further to that is some long-term value that we've been looking at. So the dime and penny is still up for question, and we'll continue to test that through fiscal 13. But we also kept an eye on these higher end premiums. As I said, the Christmas cards, it had to be mailed in the right environment. So we wanted to, it's been about 18 months out. We had really strong data on 12 months, and you can see the value of the donor, the long-term value of the donor, is 13.56 versus 9.93. So still 26% more valuable these donors are that you bring in. And the number of, the percent of 25 plus donors is 24% for the book and only 12% for the card. So it's really a success story. It was great to have the book and bring it back. And we're trying to manage it, as I said, with other things, other communications within the prospect's diet, so they're not seeing the same thing, but it's absolutely been a pillar in the last couple of years. So that's it. Did I go over 5 minutes? Tom said I couldn't do it. He absolutely said I couldn't do it.
Next we have the renewal category. We actually have a tie in this category. I'm going to ask Amy Trippy to come up here, who represents Helen Keller International from Trippy Consultant, to accept her plaque. Amy is actually not speaking today. She is graciously declined, as she has actually spoken at other Dmfa events. So now we have Dmfa, who also finished in a tie in the renewal category. And we have Valerie, and we have Steve.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. I know Friday was maybe not our best scheduling choice, but we're really excited that you're here on behalf of the DMFA. First of all, thank you, Amy, for giving me this severe case of nerves this afternoon. I really needed that. And let me start by saying I can take no credit for this package. I started at Dmfa about the time the money started rolling in, about 3 weeks after this package mailed. So the brilliance is all due to my predecessor, Wendy Barnes, and to my brilliant consultants, John Meany and Robert Perry. So catch them on your way out and offer them your congratulations. I think that theoretically, as we're all fundraisers and work for nonprofits, if we do our jobs right, we'll put ourselves out of business, right? And that's very much our culture at Dmfa, is that one day we'll find a cure for AIDS, and the next day we close our doors, and that's it. So we have no endowments, and you know, this is really, we're very laser focused in that. The problem is, when we do a good job, from a fundraising standpoint, we sort of shoot ourselves in the foot. And we very much have done that at Dmfa, because having funded the research behind 4 of the 6 classes of drugs that are used to treat HIV and AIDS in the world, what's happened is AIDS is no longer the death sentence that it once was. So we no longer have this big bad enemy that is AIDS and HIV. Thank you. Can't really take credit for that either. But thank you. Someone said to me, just own it, right? So, so from a fundraising standpoint, that's kind of hard because you no longer have this enemy and you need an enemy. And I mean, Paris Hilton is not going to cut it for us this week. So this is kind of a problem in making a case for support. So we have a real name recognition problem. We sort of live in a bubble in our office where we think that, oh, everyone knows who Dmfa is. Doesn't everyone knows, right? And then we go out in the world and people say, wait, who, what's that? And who are you? And so that's kind of a problem. So we, I think more than a lot of groups, really have to rely on the donors that we have to raise money. And so our appeals are just that much more important for us. Ambitious budget goals, I don't know if any of you have that. I use the term ambitious. I really feel like it's more unrealistic, but we do the best we can. In any case, that brings us to our appeal. So last fall, what I have learned is that, you know, it's holiday time. What are we going to put out there? I was raised in a family that eats, breathes, sleeps Covenant House and really believes in the power of Covenant House's direct mail and the telling a story. Well, I arrive at Dmfa and I come to learn that, well, stories don't work for our donors. Our donors are what we call the infected and the affected, and they want to know what's the latest treatment and drug that's coming down the pipeline. So a story is really not what they're so interested in. In any case, it was holiday time. Everybody put their heads together and we said, can we really go out there and talk about another drug, another treatment at Christmas? So we took a gamble. Our communications department had discovered this family, the Meredith family, that's this picture up here. The mother and the 3 children all have AIDS. And so what we did was we borrowed that story from communications and we went out in our online fundraising and in our direct mail and told the story of this family, thinking that at holiday time, maybe if we switch it up a little, let's just go for it. And our gamble paid off for a lot of reasons, which we're excited about. And you know, and we did the things that all of us do, the smart things. You know, we increased the personalization. What my boss calls the direct mail parlor tricks. You know, the stamped reply envelopes, the handwritten outsides, anything like that, just to try and increase response. And I think all those things certainly contributed. The other factor that we had going for us with this package was December 1st is World AIDS Day, and last year our communications department and our online consultants put together a fantastic campaign around World AIDS Day. So we had a lot of, we were busy out in the world in those first couple of weeks in December, so that when the November appeal and the December appeal all came together, we were on people's minds. And I really think that, you know, it's multi-channel at its best. You know, one segment is lifting another, and that's apparently what works. So I think that's all I've got for you. Yeah, and that's it. And so thank you all. We greatly appreciate it. So.
Next, we have the winner in the mid-level category, which is ASPCA. Andrea O'Brien is here today.
Just real quickly to give everybody an idea of what the Founders Society is for us, because I know everybody's mid-level group is often a little different. For us, it's donors of $500 or more, and we include both one-time and cumulative donors in that group. We have about 13,000 members in our Founders Society right now, which makes testing things a little bit tricky. Sometimes I just do stuff, which I know everybody loves. But this package actually has a longer history. In the past couple of years, we've made an effort to really create new packages for the founders that talk to them in a different way, talk to them as an insider and as a partner to the work that we're doing, give them a little bit more depth in the initiatives that we're rolling out and the way that their support is helping us do new and creative things. I think everybody knows, we save puppies and kittens, but we're trying to make our Founders Society members more aware of exactly how we do that and how their help allows us to roll out some pretty cool new projects. So this was the package last year, and it was an internal memo from program staff to our president outlining, last year it was our mobile spay-neuter project, and a lift note for me explaining again why we're sharing this with them, why we feel like this is the level of information that they're interested in and how this is the kind of work that their support allows us to do. And then photos sort of highlighting the project itself and pretty standard reply and outer carrier. And then when we decided to do planning for this year, I discovered that apparently I really liked this package. And I think I had fairly high expectations for it because apparently I'd been going around telling people it didn't work. Which wasn't true. It just didn't work quite as well as I would have liked it to. I thought it had more potential. I think we saw about a 3.8% response rate from it. We'd raised about $100,000 from the package. But I hadn't done enough damage that people weren't willing to give it another try, which was good. So this is the package from this year. And again, it's the same idea. We talked about our transport program, which is a very cool program that moves dogs around from overcrowded shelters to other areas of the country where their shelters don't have enough dogs to meet the demand of people coming in to adopt them. So really shifting that supply and demand issue so that more dogs can be adopted and won't be put down simply for lack of home and space. So we had an individual story with Benji that we were telling, an animal who got transferred from one shelter to another and was adopted almost immediately upon arriving at the new shelter. He'd been 5 years, I think, at the previous shelter without finding a home. So it was a really good example of how the transport program was working. And we made 2 changes to the program, to the package from last year. One a little bit more subtle, and one fairly obvious one. The more subtle change was inside. And one of the things that we felt like we were maybe struggling with was, since the memo is from program staff to our president, there was no direct ask to the donor. So we tweaked language a little bit. We used some highlighting and some various underlining things that tried to draw emphasis to the funding needs of the program and why we were one of the organizations who could do this kind of program with their support. This was the kind of new and creative way to tackle homelessness within pets that they were really allowing us to do, and again, create that feeling that they're a partner and give them that inside perspective. The other one was just to get them to open the thing in the first place, which was our outer package. And for those of you who are here, the last lunch, the finished product was a manila envelope, which looked very much like an interoffice envelope, and I was going to thank our production team for pulling that together, but they are not here.
Hey, Andrea, let me hold it up so everybody can see it, okay?
I'm standing right in front of it. Yeah. But again, so we had their address on the back flap, and then their name occupies that final space as the last person to be getting the interoffice mail. And we were going for authenticity, which which I think worked. Yeah. Thank you very much. You have a second career, Vanna. Yeah. And I did get at least one donor who was confused as to why anyone would use an interoffice envelope to send her something. So in that case, maybe it worked too well, but I think we made it look real. And fortunately, I will not go around saying the package did not work anymore. I'm done saying that. But we saw a real jump in the average gift, and we more than doubled. Actually, the revenue has gone up a little bit more from when I checked it this morning, because people like to hang on to their BREs like they're going to be of use at the end of days. And so we're now just above the 200,000 mark for this package. So, I think we found some ways to tweak what we were sure worked. I know sometimes it's really easy to, those packages that you really love, you know that they're not going to work, they're not supposed to work, that's sort of how that goes. But I wasn't willing to give up on this, and I think we found some good ways to tweak it and make it really work. And I think it really is a good example of the work we're trying to do with founders, that inside look, and really talking to them as if they know the details of our program. And overall, that kind of approach has helped us boost retention and build loyalty with this group of donors. So, thank you very much.
Next we have the fourth speaker, and the winner in the email category the U.S. Fund for UNICEF. We have Nadine here, and we have Steve Daigle from M&R Consulting.
We've been working with the U.S. Fund for a little over 3 years. So we've been through 2 end-of-year campaigns. You both were very, very successful, beating expectations, projections, and previous year's revenue. So coming up on the 3rd year, it gets harder and harder to beat last year every time you do better. And the unique thing about last year was that there was a really massive famine in the Horn of Africa in the summer, and so we had been hitting the list really hard, and they had responded very well, but they had given a lot of money really up through October. So we were going into end of year feeling like we had really asked a lot and maybe had pushed the limit a little bit. Felt like maybe they were getting burnt out, but realizing we still had end of year that we needed to pull off. We needed to do a good job. So our goal was to raise $940,000 just from email. We wanted to try some new tactics to increase typically, which we see a lot, the email campaigns that we run, the messages earlier on in the month don't perform really well. It's the messages in that last week that do really well. So, sort of like, do we even send those messages? We're like, when we send a message, we're losing people and we're not getting a lot. What should we do with those messages? So we wanted to try some new stuff. And then we just had a simple test on the landing page, 1 column versus 2. So for the earlier messages, what we decided to test was for donors, we kind of had a year in review kind of email that asked them to take a survey as to why they gave earlier in the year. Our feeling was that we wanted them to get back in touch with the emotion that actually motivated them, hopefully to try to counteract any, feelings of being burnt out. And then we were also planning, depending on the responses, possibly using some of those responses in the final appeals near the year end so we could show the rest of the donors why people were giving, hopefully to motivate them. For the lapsed donors, what we decided to try was something a little more aggressive. It was, kind of a quick summary about some of the challenges that the U.S. Fund was facing, and asking them to confirm their contact information. Within that contact information, there was some red text that said 2011 gifts, no gifts on record. So it was actually fairly successful. Both, the donor version didn't raise a ton, I think maybe like 25,000. The lapsed version raised about 75,000, but it also generated a lot of calls to customer service. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of a data snafu that caused some actual donors to receive this. So I think it's a good tactic. I think what we're going to try to do this year is soften it maybe just a touch, and then just be like quadruple sure that all of the offline data is up to snuff. I know, yeah, that was lovely. So with those 2 messages out of the way, what we decided to do was we decided we weren't even going to launch the campaign until December 23rd. So basically it was just going to be dead silent until that very late date. And on that date was when we announced our match. What this allowed us to do was have a very round number and $1 million match, that we weren't going to run out of it early. We weren't going to need to do funny numbers. We could just have one match. We could have it on the website. We could have it in email. It was going to be real clean. And we decided to go ahead and reference the Horn. That we went back, even though there was this feeling maybe they were burnt out. We felt like maybe we could position it in a way where we could still be hopeful about the power that they have to change the situation. So this launched, and was almost the highest grossing appeals, raised $351,000 just from this one email. The average gift was tied for the highest gift at $185. The worst performer launched, I think this was the third one in the series, or it could have been the second one. This one, still raised a lot of money. A couple of things that happened here, I think we've seen in testing, the thermometer is not more than halfway filled, and that actually tends to be not motivating to people. So I think this year we're probably not going to show the thermometer until it's more full. And then the other thing is that we said that there were only 4 days left, but in email, 4 days is like a year. So people are like, there's 4 days left, I don't need to give right now. But otherwise, I thought it was an okay email, but it ended up being the worst performer. The Share Your Story appeal was sort of a mixed bag. We did end up getting a lot of good quotes from that survey from donors, and we repeated them back in this appeal, talking about why others have given, hopefully trying to tap into a little bit of peer pressure psychology to get others to give. And it was the second worst performing appeal. It still had a very high average gift though, and did okay. I don't know if we're going to repeat this tactic in the appeal this year. We might still do the earlier appeal to cultivate the donors, but I don't know if we'll repeat them and make it the subject of a lead. The best performer was the day of. This was really like, there's just hours left, and I think everyone knows these are your best performers. It raised a lot, and it was just, it's just deadline stuff. Email is just very, very deadline driven. And then what we did do is send a second email on the same day, on the 31st. This, we felt like, hopefully could get people to give again, or people who hadn't given, maybe they would give, maybe previous donors had gotten this as well, could give them a chance to give again if they wanted to. But it really wasn't meant to look like an appeal. It was really just meant to be a big thank you with, just a thought about what these donors actually are doing, what their gift means to kids around the world. But there was a link to give, and it did raise $170,000. So the test was a 2-column versus 1 column, and there actually was no real difference between the two, which was a little bit surprising. We've run some other tests on landing pages for the US Fund at end of year where there was very little difference as well. And I almost feel like we may not want, I almost feel like these donors are especially end of year, they're gonna give no matter what. Like you could, you wanna make it as easy as possible, but these kinds of differences at end of year may not make as big of a difference as they might at a campaign in the middle of the year or earlier in the year. So overall, we raised $1.77 million just from email. That was from no other sources. This was $836,000 above projections. It was 570 or so above the previous year and 640,000 above the year before that. I am very nervous this year. Because I am now needing to plan and write for this year, and it's going to be hard. I think we did, even though the Horn of Africa, we were at the tail end of that crisis. We did sort of luckily or whatever, we were able to pull it off, referencing it and using urgency there while still still getting people to give. So we'll see how it goes this year. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. That was excellent. Next we have the runner-ups. Not everyone is here today, so I'm just going to mail those plaques out. So I'd like to call up MKDN for Friends of the Highline, and also they are the runner-ups in the email and renewal categories. Moira?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
The other runner-ups that we have are True North. They're the agency that represents the Wounded Warrior Project. And we also have Eidolon Communications representing International Rescue Committee. They're not here today, so I'm going to mail those plaques out. Next, I just call up Steve to call on some final notes.
Thank you.
Do I get to ask a question actually first? And I wanted to make sure we have a few more minutes. Do you think day of week matters? For folks who are doing year end, I noticed that New Year's Eve is a Monday this year, which seems better than a Sunday or Saturday, but...
Day of week doesn't matter for end of year.
You think for folks who come into the office in the morning of New Year's Eve and then go home early?
I mean, I would still, I'm still probably going to recommend two messages on the 31st.
Yep.
Yeah.
If the calendar played along though and it happened to be a Thursday, it'd be a little bit...
Still do it.
Yeah. All right, sorry. Anyone else have any other questions for any of the presenters that they wanted to ask?
I do. For the second email with the 177,000, how many hours did that take?
You mean like to come in?
Yeah. Did you, you launched the email, you get 177,000 in how much of a time period?
Oh, I see. All of those revenue stats are at the 24-hour mark.
Okay.
So.
Well done.
So how many people wound up responding to that email?
So
That's an amazing amount.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many donors there were. I mean, overall, the average gift of the campaign was maybe about maybe $150, and
which is amazingly
very high. Yeah, they have a very high average gift.
Right, and is that higher than what you're getting through your direct mail?
Much higher. Direct mail is like in our house program, maybe $60, $65.
So are you seeing a very different profile from your email donor versus your mail donor?
Our email donor is much younger. I mean, younger meaning in their 50s compared to our
That's not old.
No. Our direct mail file is 65 years. Yeah. Right.
And do you start at like 150 in the ads?
We actually use a fill-in, an open box. There's no gift string. We tested a gift string a couple of years ago, and it was worse than the open box. So we stuck, which is different than what I've seen. So.
Okay.
So they have a list of about, I think at that time it was about a little over 600,000. So we were looking at response rates for the full file of somewhere around, I think for the full email campaign, all of the messages together, response rates of 0.27.
Steve, thank you. And Tom, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Something I noticed on all the presentations we saw today, every piece of letterhead, every memo seemed to be full of text. The letters seem long, there's an awful lot of reading. We all get these things in the mail. I never read them all. What's the thought on how long the copy should be? Because they look really busy to me, and a heck of a lot of reading.
For Covenant House, we've tried testing with 1 page or 2 page. Our donors really like to read. They like to know the stories about the kids. So in the book package, it starts out wordy and but everyone reads it. We get a lot of people that actually even call in and ask us to send them additional books because they want to hand it out to kids and let them know. So for us, the more out here, the better it is.
I mean, we've tested copy length, and we also, there's a bunch of folks on our staff that have worked at Obama for America, so they test a lot of their copy, and we trade test results. And it's interesting that a lot of the tests show the longer copy often wins. I think it depends on the quality of the copy. I mean, like it can be long and crappy, or it can be long and amazing. I think it can be short and amazing. I think at end of year it probably matters a lot less, especially in the final days. But we've just, we've gotten to the point with UNICEF where we're very familiar with the content that we feel like the files responded well to something a little longer.
So Steve and Valerie and Tom and Lisa and Andrea, I think we're all really lucky to have you guys here today sharing those thoughts. And Amy as well, you could have come up here as well and filled in an extra 10 minutes. You're welcome to do so when you win an award next year, I'm sure, as part of it. I love the Package of the Year award that the DMFA does. It's voted on by our peers in the industry, and it speaks a lot for the winners to have that kind of endorsement from the folks who are at that 125-person luncheon in June, and then to hear the insight. So I thank you all for being here again, and look forward to seeing you here next month.
Hey, Steve, would you mind mentioning the scholarship fund?
Yes, sorry. So the DMFA, I'm sorry for actually leaving off earlier as well. The DMFA, like I had said, is in a very fortunate position because of the amazing membership and corporate sponsor support that we get. And we're so grateful for that as well. We realize that there are a lot of industry events, whether they be webinars, whether they be conferences in a different city, that can sometimes be a financial burden for a nonprofit that has a hard time convincing someone internally to approve that. And that type of continuing professional education is what makes each of us individually and as a profession better. So what the board did is freed up a $10,000 pool of resources to be given away as needed for individuals who apply to the DMFA Scholarship Fund, whether it be a $50 webinar or a $500 conference registration. There are rules on the website, some details for the entry. We're looking at making it even easier, but we definitely encourage you yourselves to tell your peers and colleagues as well. We, again, value so much the kind of educational sharing that happens in rooms like this, and realize they make us as individuals and as a profession more efficient and better stewards of our donors' money. So that's the DMFA Scholarship. I'm thrilled that the board was able to have that kind of flexibility because of our sponsors, and thankful for everyone who sort of is a part of that. But please encourage your clients and your coworkers and your staffs to apply for that and spread the word on that. So thank you. Thanks for the reminder, Jim.